You wake up every morning, look around, and you feel certain that the world you see is real. The bed beneath you is real. The phone in your hand is real. The problems you're worried about, oh, they feel very real too. But what if this reality isn't what you think? What if it's not solid, permanent, or fixed, but more like a program running in the background of your mind? What if you've been living inside a blueprint, a design that you never knew you had the power to change? I know that sounds wild, but stay with me, because in this video, we're not just going to talk about abstract philosophy. We're going to explore the science, the stories, and the everyday clues that show you that reality is not a cage you're trapped in. It's clay you can shape. This is your quantum blueprint. And once you understand it, you'll realize you're not just a character in your story, you're the author. Let's begin with something you rarely stop to think about. The world you see is not the full world. Take your eyes, for example. They can only detect a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum, less than 1%. That means the colors you see are just a sliver of what's actually out there. Same with your ears. They pick up only a narrow band of sound frequencies. So already, your senses are filtering reality. You don't experience all that is. You experience only what your biology allows, but it doesn't stop there. Your brain adds another layer of editing. Memories, beliefs, and biases act like tinted glasses, shaping what you notice and what you ignore. Ever had a friend buy a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere? They were always there, but now your brain has been trained to notice them. That's your filter at work. So here's the first crack in the illusion. What you call reality is not the reality. It's your version of reality, carefully selected, filtered, and constructed in your mind. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Neuroscientists have discovered that your brain is not a passive receiver of information. It doesn't just sit there waiting for the outside world to tell it what's happening. Instead, your brain is an active architect. It constantly predicts, edits, and even creates what you experience. Think of it like this. Reality comes into your senses as raw, incomplete data. Your brain takes that data, mixes it with your past experiences, and then paints in the missing details, like Photoshop auto-filling an image. That's why two people can witness the same event, but walk away with completely different stories. Each one's brain built a different version of what happened, which leads to a radical but liberating truth. Reality isn't happening to you. Reality is happening through you. Okay, let's slow down here, because this is where it can feel like the ground is shifting under your feet. If your senses are limited and your brain is constructing your version of reality, then what you're experiencing every day is not objective reality. It's a simulation, your personal simulation. It's like you're living inside a video game, but the code of that game is written by your beliefs, your focus, and your subconscious patterns. Here's the kicker. Most of that code wasn't even written by you. It was handed down by parents, culture, teachers, society. You didn't consciously choose much of the blueprint you're living in. That's why so many people feel stuck, repeating the same cycles, bumping into the same problems, feeling like life is a loop. They're running an old script, but what happens when you realize the script can be rewritten? So let me ask you a dangerous question. If your reality is built from filters and scripts, then what happens when you start questioning those scripts? Think about it. If your brain can create your version of reality unconsciously, then what if you learn to do it consciously? Instead of running on autopilot, what if you could choose the patterns, the beliefs, the focus that shape your world? This is where the quantum perspective comes in. Quantum physics tells us that the act of observation doesn't just record reality. It collapses possibilities into reality. In other words, where you place your attention literally decides what shows up for you. We'll dive deeper into that in the next chapter, but for now, hold on to this. Reality isn't fixed. It's flexible. It bends to your awareness. So what's coming in this journey? In the chapters ahead, we'll uncover how your thoughts and emotions are not just feelings. but frequencies that interact with the field around you. How to identify and dismantle old scripts so you stop living someone else's program. Practical techniques to rescript your blueprint with intention. Visualization and focus, real evidence, real stories, and real tools to prove this isn't just theory. It's something you can live, and ultimately, how stepping into this understanding gives you not only freedom, but also responsibility. Because once you know you're the architect, you can no longer pretend you're just the victim. So here we are, at the edge of the illusion. The world around you isn't a prison. It's a projection. Your brain is the projector. Your beliefs are the slides. And your awareness is the light that brings it all into form. In the next chapter, we'll dive into what lies beyond the material, the quantum field itself, and how science reveals that everything you thought was solid is, in fact, energy in motion. But for now, sit with this idea. Reality isn't what happens to you. Reality is what happens through you, and if that's true, then what will you choose to create next? Imagine for a moment that you are holding something solid in your hand. Maybe a stone, a phone, or even just the chair you're sitting on right now. It feels firm, dependable, undeniably real. Our whole life has been built around this assumption. The physical world is solid and unchanging. But what if I told you that even that stone, that phone, that chair is mostly empty space? What if the solidity you trust so much is just another layer of illusion, one that science itself has been quietly dismantling for over a century? The story of how we got here begins with Newton. Newton gave us a world that made sense, a clockwork universe where objects had weight, where causes led to predictable effects, where everything could be measured, calculated, and explained. This worldview became so deeply rooted in our culture that we began to believe it was absolute truth. Solid objects, deterministic laws, nothing spooky, nothing mysterious, just matter in motion. But then something strange happened. Scientists started looking deeper, peering inside atoms, expecting to find smaller, harder bits of matter, little building blocks like Lego pieces. Instead, they found nothing that behaved like solid matter at all. They found particles that acted like waves, waves that collapsed into particles only when observed, probabilities instead of certainties, and a world where the simple act of looking could change the outcome of an experiment. The safe, predictable Newtonian clock was shattered. Welcome to the quantum field. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is all abstract science, let me bring it back to you. The discoveries of quantum physics are not locked away in laboratories. They're showing us something profound about how reality itself operates, and by extension, how your reality is created. One of the strangest and most powerful discoveries is the observer effect. Put simply, particles of matter exist in a state of possibility, spread out like a cloud of potential outcomes until someone observes them. The moment attention is placed on them, they collapse into one definite form. What was once many possibilities becomes a single reality. Do you realize what that means? At the most fundamental level of reality, your awareness is not passive. It is participatory. Think about that for a second. Reality waits for you to look at it, to focus on it, to give it attention. And in that very act of looking, you shape what shows up. You aren't just recording reality, you are helping decide which version of reality comes into being. This is not science fiction. This is not wishful thinking. This is physics. And it hints at something far more personal. If everything is energy in motion, then your thoughts, your focus, and your emotions are not invisible fluff. They are forces interacting with the field. Let me give you an example. Picture a tuning fork. Strike one, and another tuning fork of the same frequency will begin to vibrate, even if you don't touch it. This is resonance. Now think of your mind like that tuning fork. When you hold a certain thought, especially one loaded with emotion, you are striking a frequency. That frequency resonates in the field, and like the tuning fork, it begins to draw matching experiences toward you. Not magically, but mechanically. This is how energy works. That means when you constantly focus on fear, worry, or lack, you're broadcasting those frequencies into the field, and reality organizes itself around that signal. On the other hand, when you focus on gratitude, possibility, and intention, you're sending out a completely different signal, and reality responds accordingly. It's not instant like flipping a light switch. It's more like planting seeds. The soil doesn't argue with you. It simply grows whatever you plant, and yet most of us have been planting unconsciously. Think of how often your thoughts loop on autopilot. How often you replay the same worries, rehearse the same limitations, carry forward the same self-image day after day. Each of those thoughts is a frequency, a signal being broadcast into the field. And the field, it listens, it arranges, it responds. Not because it has opinions, but because that's how energy interacts with energy. This is where the idea of the quantum blueprint begins to take form. Your life is not just a collection of random events. It's the printout of the signals you've been feeding into the field. Change the signals, and slowly but surely, the printout changes too. Now, this doesn't mean you can snap your fingers and turn your living room into a palace or your bank account into millions overnight. That's the shallow, cartoonish version people sometimes associate with these ideas. No, what it means is deeper and far more powerful. It means you have influence. It means your awareness and your focus matter more than you've ever been taught. And it means you're not a victim of a cold, deterministic universe. You're a participant in a living, responsive field of energy. So here's a question to sit with. If everything is energy, then what energy are you broadcasting right now? What's the frequency of your thoughts today? Is it a frequency of possibility or of limitation? Is it aligned with the life you want, or is it reinforcing the one you're tired of? This isn't about guilt or blame. This is about awareness. Because once you see that reality is fluid, that matter itself dances to the rhythm of observation and energy, you stop feeling stuck. You start realizing that you have a choice. The illusion of solidity dissolves. The illusion of helplessness dissolves, and in its place comes something electrifying. The realization that reality is flexible. In this chapter, we've cracked open the door to that realization. The material world is not as material as you thought. Beneath the surface, there is a field of possibilities waiting for your awareness to give them form. And in the next chapter, we're going to take this understanding one step further. We'll explore how you can move from being a passive observer to an active participant, how to actually rescript the story you've been unconsciously running. Because if the quantum field is alive with potential, and if your thoughts and emotions are the tools to shape it, then the next step is learning how to use those tools deliberately. But before we move on, just take a breath. Look around you. The world you see feels solid, but beneath it is a shimmering ocean of possibility. You're not just living in it, you're shaping it, every single moment, with the power of your awareness. And that, my friend, is the beginning of stepping into your quantum blueprint. Up to now, we've been peeling back layers of illusion. First, we discovered that your brain doesn't just receive reality, it filters and builds it. Then we went deeper and saw that the physical world isn't as solid as it seems. It's energy, vibrating in a field of infinite possibilities. And now comes the part where everything gets personal. Because if reality is flexible, if your awareness can collapse possibilities into form, then the question becomes, what story are you living by? And are you the one writing it? Think about your life like a movie. Every morning you wake up, step into your role, follow a script and hit repeat. The characters are familiar, the settings are predictable, and even the plot twists seem recycled. Why? Because much of your story is running on an unconscious script, patterns written long before you were even aware of them. Some of those scripts came from childhood. Maybe you grew up hearing that money is scarce, so now you unconsciously sabotage financial opportunities. Maybe you absorb the belief that love is conditional, so you repeat the same painful relationships. Or maybe your script says success is for other people, so you never allow yourself to fully step into your potential. These scripts are invisible but powerful. They shape the roles you play, the choices you make, and the reality you keep experiencing. Here's the twist. Just because a script was handed to you doesn't mean you have to keep performing it. You can walk off stage, take the pen, and start rewriting. That's what conscious creation is all about. So how do you do it? The first step is awareness. You can't rewrite what you don't know exists. Start paying attention to the repeating themes in your life. Notice the patterns. What struggles show up again and again? Where do you feel blocked or stuck? Behind each of those patterns is a script, a belief, a thought loop that's been running in the background. For example, maybe every time you get close to a breakthrough, something goes wrong. It's easy to chalk that up to bad luck. But if it keeps happening, maybe the script underneath says, "I'm not worthy of success." Or maybe deep down it whispers, "If I succeed, I'll lose love." These beliefs are not facts. They are codes in your blueprint. And any code can be changed. Once you've spotted the old scripts, the second step is dismantling them. That doesn't mean fighting them with force. It means gently questioning them. Ask yourself, is this really true? Where did I learn this? Do I want to keep carrying this belief? Sometimes simply shining a light of awareness on an old program is enough to weaken its grip. But awareness alone is not enough. If you pull out an old script, you need to replace it with a new one. And this is where the tools of conscious creation come. In visualization, intention, emotion. These are not fluffy concepts. They are the language your brain and the quantum field both understand. Let's take visualization. When you close your eyes and imagine yourself living a new story, whether it's stepping onto a stage, walking into a new home, or embracing a healthy relationship, your brain doesn't fully distinguish between the imagined and the real. It begins wiring new pathways, preparing you for that reality. In a way, you're rehearsing the new script before it unfolds. And the more vividly you practice it, the more real it feels, until your brain begins to expect it. Now add intention. Visualization is like drawing a picture, but intention is the act of stamping it with purpose. When you set a clear intention, I choose to experience abundance. I allow myself to feel love. I decide to live with freedom. You are sending a direct signal into the field. Remember the tuning fork. Intention strikes the note, and then comes emotion. This is the amplifier. A thought without emotion is like a radio signal without volume, weak, barely heard. But when you combine visualization with genuine emotion, joy, gratitude, excitement, you supercharge the frequency. You're not just thinking about the new story. You're feeling it. You're embodying it now before it arrives. That emotional signature is powerful. It tells the field, this is real. This is alive. It's easy to dismiss these tools as just imagination. But here's the secret. Imagination is the blueprint of creation. Everything ever built in human history, a bridge, a phone, a work of art, was imagined before it became real. The blueprint came first. Reality followed. Why should your personal life be any different? Let me share an analogy. Imagine you're holding a script for a play. You've been performing Act 1 for years, and honestly, it's not your favorite. The dialogue is repetitive, the plot predictable. But in your hands, you also have a blank page. That page is Act 2. You can write whatever you want. You can introduce new characters, new settings, a completely new ending. The old script doesn't vanish overnight, but every time you choose to step into the new dialogue, you bring Act 2 to life. This is the art of rescripting. Not forcing reality, but guiding it. Not escaping the past, but choosing not to be bound by it. Of course, this doesn't mean life suddenly becomes perfect. Challenges still arise, but when you're consciously creating, you respond differently. Instead of being dragged by old scripts, you see challenges as opportunities to reinforce the new story. Each obstacle becomes a chance to choose again. So ask yourself, what story am I ready to stop repeating? And what story do I want to live instead? Don't rush for the perfect answer. Sometimes the simplest shift is enough. Moving from I'm stuck to I'm learning, from I'm unlucky to I'm discovering my power, from I can't to I'm beginning. Small scripts can open big doors. As we move forward, remember this. The field responds to your frequency, not your fantasies. If you imagine abundance but constantly feel lack, the field hears lack. If you visualize love but hold on to fear, the field hears fear. That's why aligning thought, intention, and emotion is so important. Together, they create coherence. And coherence is magnetic. We've now reached the turning point. You understand the illusion, you understand the field, and now you've begun to grasp how to consciously rescript your story. In the next chapter, we'll look at how reality itself gives you feedback, how the world mirrors back your scripts and intentions, and how you can use that feedback as proof that your blueprint is shifting. But for now, take a moment. Imagine a new chapter of your life. See it, feel it, stamp it with intention. Because in that moment, you are no longer a character reading old lines. You are the author, writing a story worth living. By now, you've begun to see reality in a very different way. You know that your brain filters the world. You know that the physical is not as solid as it seems, and you've started to imagine how your thoughts and emotions might be shaping what shows up for you. But maybe a part of you is still asking, okay, but how do I know this works? How do I see the proof? That's where the feedback loop comes in. Reality is not silent. It's not something you throw your intentions into and then hope for the best. It's responsive. It gives you signals, patterns, and reflections all the time. The problem is, most people don't recognize them for what they are. They dismiss them as coincidence, as luck, as random events. But when you begin to notice, really notice, you'll see that life has been whispering back to you all along. Think of reality as a mirror. When you smile into a mirror, it smiles back. When you frown, the reflection frowns. The mirror doesn't choose. It doesn't have opinions. It just reflects. In the same way, reality reflects the blueprint you're carrying. Your beliefs, your focus, your emotional tone, these are projected outward and then mirrored back in the experiences you encounter. Maybe you've had this happen before. You wake up in a bad mood, spill your coffee, hit traffic, argue with someone, and by the end of the day you say, "What a terrible day." But what if the day wasn't terrible at all? What if the energy you started with shaped how you moved through it, what you noticed, and even the responses you got from others? That's the feedback loop. It's not punishment. It's simply resonance. On the flip side, think about those days when everything seems to flow. You're in a good mood. You meet the right person at the right time, the opportunities line up, and you think, wow, what a lucky day. But was it luck? Or was it alignment? Was it reality reflecting back the frequency you were broadcasting? Science gives us fascinating glimpses of this. Studies on intention, prayer, and focused thought show measurable effects. Plants growing faster, random number generators shifting, even changes in physical healing outcomes. These experiments don't prove everything, but they hint at a powerful truth. Intention is not just wishful thinking. It interacts with the field in ways we're only beginning to understand, and you don't need to wait for a laboratory to confirm it. You can test it yourself. Treat your life as a quantum lab. Set small, clear intentions and watch what happens. For example, start your day by saying, "Today I will notice moments of kindness." That's it. Then go about your day. You'll be amazed at how many small acts of kindness you suddenly notice, things you might have overlooked before. Did reality change? Or did your awareness shift, collapsing more of those possibilities into your experience? Another experiment. Hold gratitude in your mind before walking into a conversation. Instead of focusing on what you want from the other person, silently feel thankful for them. Notice how the tone of the conversation shifts. Notice how they respond. This is feedback. It shows you that your inner state is not private, it's participatory. The beauty of the feedback loop is that it works both ways. If you don't like what's showing up, instead of blaming the mirror, you can ask, "What am I projecting?" That doesn't mean blaming yourself for every hardship. Life has complexity. But it does mean you reclaim your power. You stop being a passive victim of circumstance and start treating reality as a dialogue. You speak through your focus and feelings. Reality answers back with reflections. Here's a story that illustrates this. A man was constantly frustrated at work, feeling unappreciated and overlooked. He carried that frustration home, where arguments with his family became common. One day he decided to experiment. Before going into the office, he sat in his car and set a new intention. Today, I choose to notice what's working. He carried that thought through the day. Instead of focusing on slights, he looked for cooperation. Instead of expecting dismissal, he looked for acknowledgement. By the end of the week, he reported something surprising. His boss had praised him, his team had been more supportive, and even at home, the tension had eased. Did the world suddenly change? Or did his shift in attention change the signals he sent, which then altered what was reflected back? This is the power of the feedback loop. It doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, but even challenges can be feedback. They can show you where your blueprint is out of alignment. If you keep hitting the same wall, it's not life punishing you. It's life saying, there's a script here you haven't rewritten yet. Instead of asking, why me? You begin asking, what is this showing me? The loop also accelerates as you become more conscious. In the beginning, changes might feel small, but the more you practice intention, awareness, and emotional alignment, the quicker reality seems to respond. Synchronicities increase. The right people show up at the right time. Opportunities arise that match your focus. It feels magical, but it's not magic. It's coherence. Your inner world and outer world are syncing up. So where does this leave you? With a choice. You can keep treating reality as random, or you can begin engaging with it as a feedback system. You can start small with daily experiments and watch how the mirror responds. You don't need to convince anyone else. You don't need to prove it on paper. You just need to notice. As we continue this journey, remember, feedback is not failure. If something unwanted shows up, it's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're learning. It's a clue pointing you to the blueprint beneath the surface. And once you see it, you can adjust. So the next time life surprises you, whether with joy or with challenge, pause. Ask yourself, what is this reflecting back to me? What signal am I sending into the field? Then choose again, because every moment is an opportunity to rewrite, to realign, to refine your blueprint. In the next chapter, we'll take this further. We'll talk about what it means to live, not just in bursts of conscious creation, but in ongoing alignment with the field. How to move beyond isolated experiments and into a flow state where life feels designed rather than accidental. But for now, hold this simple truth. Reality is not a wall you crash into. It's a mirror reflecting you. And when you change what you project, the reflection cannot help but change with it. You've started to notice the mirror. You've seen how reality reflects back your focus, your emotions, your inner state. Maybe you've even tried a small experiment or two and felt the subtle shift when you chose a different script. That's powerful. But now comes the next level. What happens when you don't just use these tools occasionally, but begin to live in alignment with the field? Think of life like a river. Most people spend their days paddling hard against the current, trying to force things, fighting resistance. It feels exhausting, and even when they move forward, it's a struggle. But alignment is different. Alignment is when you turn the boat around, let the current carry you, and discover that the river itself wants to take you where you're meant to go. Flow replaces struggle. Synchronicity replaces chance, and what once felt like resistance begins to feel like rhythm. But what exactly is alignment? It's not about being positive all the time. It's not about pretending challenges don't exist. Alignment means your inner world, your thoughts, feelings, and intentions, is in harmony with the frequency of what you want to experience. Imagine tuning a radio. If you want to hear your favorite song, you don't blame the station when static comes through. You adjust the dial. You find the right frequency. In the same way, alignment is adjusting your inner dial to match the life you want. You've probably had moments of this already, even if you didn't call it alignment. Maybe you've had days where everything just clicked. You ran into the right person, had the right conversation, doors opened at the exact moment you needed them. People call it luck, coincidence, or even destiny. But what if those moments weren't accidents? What if they were glimpses of what happens when your inner and outer worlds are resonating? Alignment feels different from forcing. Forcing feels heavy, filled with resistance, like pushing against a wall. Alignment feels light, natural, almost effortless. You're still taking action, but the action flows. The opportunities seem to meet you halfway. Instead of chasing, you're allowing. Instead of grinding, you're gliding. Of course, alignment doesn't mean you sit on the couch waiting for miracles. It's not about inaction. It's about inspired action. Action that arises naturally from the state you're in. For example, when you're aligned with gratitude and openness, you might feel nudged to call a friend, take a walk, or start a project. And that simple action leads to an opportunity you never could have planned. That's the field responding. That's the current of the river carrying you. So how do you practice alignment? It begins with awareness of how you feel. Your emotions are like a compass. When you feel light, expansive, inspired, you're aligned. When you feel heavy, stuck, or contracted, you're out of tune. The key is not to judge yourself for being out of alignment. It happens to everyone. The key is to notice and then gently shift. Small shifts matter. Gratitude is one of the simplest. When you pause to appreciate something, even something small, you change your frequency. You strike a new note, and the field hears it. Meditation is another tool. By quieting the constant chatter of the mind, you make space to tune into a deeper rhythm, one that aligns naturally with flow. Intention, as we've already explored, is also powerful. Set a clear, simple intention each morning, not as a demand, but as a direction. Today, I choose ease. Today, I choose clarity. The more consistently you practice these small shifts, the more alignment becomes your default. And when alignment becomes your default, synchronicities multiply. You begin to notice repeating numbers, chance encounters, opportunities arriving at the perfect time. Life feels less like random chaos and more like a conversation with the universe. But alignment is not about perfection. It's not about never having a bad day. In fact, resistance still shows up, but now you see it differently. Instead of being a sign you're failing, resistance becomes a signal that something is out of tune. And because you know how the feedback loop works, you can adjust. You can choose again. Think about a musician tuning a guitar. If one string is off, the whole song feels wrong. But a skilled musician doesn't get upset about the bad note. They adjust the string and the harmony returns. In the same way, alignment is a practice of tuning. You'll notice when something is off, and instead of spiraling, you'll adjust. And every adjustment brings you closer to harmony. Here's something beautiful. Alignment not only changes how life feels, it changes how life responds. When you're aligned, people feel it. They're drawn to your energy. Opportunities are magnetized toward you. Even challenges transform, because instead of reacting from fear, you respond from clarity. Alignment doesn't remove obstacles, but it changes your relationship to them. They stop being walls and start being stepping stones. And here's the deeper truth. Alignment is not just about personal gain. When you're in alignment, you're contributing to the larger field. Your energy ripples outward. Your coherence adds to the coherence of those around you. That's why one aligned person can uplift an entire group. You've probably felt it before, walking into a room where someone's presence instantly calmed or inspired you. That's alignment in action. It's contagious. So imagine what happens when you begin to live this way, not occasionally, but consistently. Imagine waking up and feeling guided, not lost. Imagine moving through your day with a sense of flow instead of constant friction. Imagine looking back on your life and realizing that the coincidences were not coincidences at all, but the natural rhythm of a field that has been responding to you all along. That's the invitation of alignment. To stop fighting the current, to stop forcing, to stop believing you're at the mercy of random events. Instead, to trust the rhythm, tune yourself to it, and discover that life is not something happening to you, it's something happening with you. In the next chapter, we'll expand this perspective even further. We'll talk about legacy, not just in the sense of what you leave behind, but in how your alignment ripples outward into your family, your community, and even the generations to come. Because when you change your blueprint, you don't just change your life, you change the field for everyone you touch. But for now, pause and feel this. Alignment is not a destination, it's a practice. It's a way of moving through life. And every time you tune yourself to gratitude, to intention, to coherence, you are choosing flow over force. You are choosing resonance over resistance. You are choosing to live in harmony with your quantum blueprint. By now, the pieces are beginning to connect. You've seen that reality is not fixed but flexible, that your awareness collapses possibilities into form, that your old scripts don't have to keep running, and that alignment with the field creates flow instead of resistance. But here's the part most people overlook. The choices you make, the way you live, doesn't just affect you. It ripples outward. It shapes the lives of others. It even echoes into the future. This is your quantum legacy. Think for a moment about a single pebble dropped into a pond. The moment it touches the surface, ripples expand in every direction. One small action changes the entire surface of the water. Your energy, your choices, your alignment work the same way. You never move through the world alone. Every thought you think, every emotion you embody, every intention you hold sends ripples through the field that touch people you may never even meet. We often underestimate our influence. We think, I'm just one person. What difference can I make? But quantum science and human experience both point to a different truth. Coherence is powerful. One person living in alignment can shift the energy of an entire room. One person holding clarity can calm chaos. One person radiating compassion can open hearts that were shut tight. And when you live from your blueprint, when you take responsibility for your perception and your creation, you become that person. You stop being a passive actor in the old story and step into the role of conscious designer. That shift alone is your legacy because it breaks the chain of unconscious repetition. Think about your family. Maybe certain patterns have been passed down for generations. Beliefs about money, love, success, or worth. Patterns of fear, scarcity, or limitation. Many people unconsciously inherit those scripts and keep replaying them, not realizing they are carrying forward a story that began long before them. But when you wake up to the quantum blueprint, you have the power to stop the cycle. You can say, this script ends with me, and by writing a new one, you don't just change your life, you change the lives of those who come after you, children, friends, co-workers, even strangers on the street. Whether you realize it or not, they are all touched by your state of being. When you live aligned, they feel it. When you choose gratitude instead of bitterness, they notice. When you respond with presence instead of reaction, they are changed by it. Sometimes in big ways, sometimes in ways you'll never know. That's legacy. Not just what you do, but who you are, rippling outward. Legacy is also about responsibility. Not in the heavy, guilt-driven sense, but in the liberating sense. Once you know you are shaping reality through your awareness, you can no longer pretend you are powerless. You can no longer hide behind the excuse of chance or fate. You realize that every moment, every choice, every focus is creative. And in that realization, you gain incredible freedom. Of course, this freedom comes with courage, because stepping into your power as a conscious creator means letting go of victimhood. It means no longer blaming others or life or circumstance for every difficulty. It means looking at the mirror of reality and asking, what am I contributing to this reflection? That can feel uncomfortable at first. But it is also the doorway to empowerment. When you fully step into this, something profound happens. You begin to see your life not as a series of random events, but as a designed journey. You recognize that even the challenges were teachers, even the struggles were invitations to awaken. You start to walk differently, speak differently, choose differently. You move with intention, and others feel it. Imagine for a moment if more people lived this way, if more people recognized their blueprint, aligned with the field, and chose to live consciously. The ripple effect would be staggering. Entire communities would shift. Entire cultures would transform. And it all begins with individuals, like you, choosing to awaken. So here's the invitation. What legacy are you creating right now? Not someday in the future, but today. In the way you carry yourself, in the energy you bring into your relationships, in the scripts you are either repeating or rewriting. Your legacy isn't a monument you leave behind after you're gone. It's the living imprint you create every single day. Maybe your legacy will be breaking the cycle of fear in your family. Maybe it will be embodying kindness in a world that feels divided. Maybe it will be showing others that joy is possible, that love is abundant, that freedom is real. Whatever it is, know this: you are already leaving one. The only question is, are you choosing it consciously or letting it be written by default? And remember, your quantum legacy doesn't require perfection. You don't have to live in alignment every moment or never slip into old scripts. Legacy is not about being flawless, it's about being intentional. It's about choosing again and again, even after you fall, to step back into coherence, back into responsibility, back into creation. That persistence, that willingness to keep aligning, is itself a gift to everyone you touch. As we come to the close of this journey, realize that this is not just theory, not just an inspiring idea. It's a way of living. The blueprint is yours. The pen is in your hand, the field is listening, and the ripples of your choices are already spreading outward. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together. We'll look at how to fully embrace this quantum perspective as not just a set of tools, but as a way of being. We'll see how to live every day as the conscious designer of your destiny, and how to keep writing a story that not only transforms your own life, but touches the world around you. But for now, let this truth settle in. You are not small, you are not powerless, and you are not living in isolation. You are part of a vast, interconnected field. And every time you align, every time you choose consciously, every time you step into your blueprint, you are shaping a legacy that will outlive you. A legacy of possibility, a legacy of freedom, a legacy of creation. You've come a long way on this journey. You've questioned reality, discovered the filters in your mind, glimpsed the quantum field, learned how to rescript your story, noticed the feedback loop, and felt what it means to live in alignment. You've even begun to sense the legacy that ripples outward from your choices. And now, everything comes together here in the final step, embracing yourself as the designer of destiny. Destiny is a word that's often misunderstood. Many people think of it as something fixed, something written long before they were born, an unchangeable path that they're forced to walk. But what if destiny is not a script handed down from the outside, but a story unfolding from the inside? What if destiny is not discovered but designed? The truth is, you've been designing all along. Every thought, every belief, every focus, every emotional state has been contributing to the story you're living. The only difference now is that you are aware of it. You've woken up to the process, and that awareness is everything, because it means you can stop living unconsciously and start designing intentionally. So what does it mean to be a designer of destiny? It doesn't mean controlling every detail of life. Control is an illusion. Life is too vast, too interconnected for any one person to dictate every event. But design is different from control. Design is about creating the blueprint, setting the intention, tuning your frequency, and then allowing the field to fill in the details in ways you could never predict. Imagine an architect. They don't place every brick themselves. They create the vision, draw the design, and trust the builders, the materials, and the process to bring it into reality. In the same way, when you design your destiny, you create the vision, hold the intention, embody the frequency, and trust the field to orchestrate the details. This is where faith and science meet. Faith not in the sense of blind belief, but in the sense of trust in the process. Trust that the field responds to coherence. Trust that alignment brings flow. Trust that your blueprint, when held with clarity and emotion, will manifest in form. You don't need to know how. You only need to know what and why. The how unfolds naturally. Being the designer of destiny also means embracing responsibility. Not the heavy kind that weighs you down, but the empowering kind that lifts you up. You realize that your focus matters, your energy matters, your choices matter. No moment is wasted, because every moment contributes to the blueprint. Even setbacks, even failures, even doubts can become raw material for growth when you choose to use them consciously. And here's the most beautiful part. As the designer, you're not working alone. You're co-creating with a universe that is alive, responsive, and overflowing with possibilities. Every time you align your inner world, the outer world responds. Every time you choose gratitude, you shift the field. Every time you set a clear intention, you ripple out into the fabric of reality. You are never creating in isolation. The field is always with you, listening, reflecting, collaborating. So how do you step fully into this role? Start by asking yourself, what kind of life do I want to design? Not just in terms of possessions or achievements, but in terms of experience. Do you want a life of freedom? A life of love? A life of contribution, creativity, adventure, peace? Get clear on the essence, the feeling, the frequency. That clarity is your foundation. Then live as if it's already unfolding. Speak as if it's true. Feel the emotions of it now. Align your choices with it. And most importantly, trust the process. You don't need to force the field. You need only to stay coherent, to keep tuning your inner frequency to match the blueprint you've designed. Along the way, reality will give you feedback. Synchronicities will appear, opportunities will show up, challenges will test your alignment, and through it all, you'll be refining, adjusting, tuning, and expanding. That's the dance of creation. That's the art of design, and this design doesn't end with you. Remember, your legacy ripples outward. Every shift you make changes the field for others. Every time you break an old script, you make it easier for those around you to do the same. Every time you live in alignment, you invite others into coherence. Your destiny becomes a contribution, a gift that goes beyond your own life. One day, you'll look back and realize that the life you once thought was random, fixed or limited has transformed into something rich, meaningful, and deeply yours. You'll see the threads of intention woven through it all. You'll see how the moments of gratitude led to doors opening, how the choices of alignment created flow, how the willingness to rescript shaped a new story. And in that realization, you'll know you designed this. So here we are, at the end of one chapter, but the beginning of yours. The question is not whether you are shaping reality. You already are. The question is whether you will shape it consciously, whether you will choose your blueprint, whether you will embrace your role as the designer of destiny. Take a moment right now, breathe, feel the space around you. Imagine the field alive with possibilities. Imagine your awareness collapsing one of those possibilities into form. Imagine holding the pen, writing the next lines of your story. What do you want them to say? Because the illusion is no longer holding you. The scripts of the past are no longer in charge. The field is open, waiting, ready. And you, awake, aware, aligned, are the designer, so write boldly. Live intentionally, love deeply, align fully. This is your blueprint. This is your power. This is your destiny. And it begins, as it always has, right here, right now, in this moment.